Good evening, everyone. I, Dr. Jyoti Das, on behalf of Capacity Building Center, Cotton University, welcome you all to the 25th session of this 100-hour lecture series. Uh, uh, Esteemed resource person, Diganta Biswa Sarma, sir, I think it gives me immense pleasure to announce the 25th session today. It almost feels like a silver jubilee of our 100 lecture
Yes,
series. So yes, sir, over to you.
yes. Thank you. So, couple of sessions back, we when we discuss about the definition of consciousness, what is consciousness, we did discuss that consciousness is actually awareness. Awareness is called consciousness, but it is not only awareness. Consciousness is not only awareness. Consciousness is also power of awareness. It is not simple awareness, but it is also power of awareness. But it is not only power of awareness, it has, it has, or it has dynamic energy, it has creative energy, or you may call it consciousness is a dynamic energy or creative energy. So either of the way you can say consciousness has dynamic and creative energy, or consciousness is a dynamic and creative energy. So then today we shall be discussing two, three things. We are using four words almost interchangeably. One is force, one is energy, one is power, and other is strength. এই চাৰিটা শব্দৰে অৰ্থ একে নেকি? Whether power, strength, energy, and force, whether they are similar word, having similar meaning, or there are some difference between them. So you shall be taking up first. From the definition, what we have understood that consciousness is then made up of two elements. And what are those two elements? Awareness of self and things. One is awareness, hosetonota. One is awareness, and the other one is forces or conscious power. So power is also used. The word force is also used. Sometimes energy is also used. Sometimes word strength is also used. But then awareness is the first thing necessary. Awareness is the first thing necessary. You have to be aware of things in the right consciousness, in the right way, seeing them in their truth. But awareness by itself is not enough. Awareness by itself is not enough. Though awareness is the first thing necessary. You have to be aware of things, and aware of things in the right consciousness, in the right way, seeing them in their truth. But awareness by itself is not enough. Then what we require? What then required? Then there must be a will and a force. But then there must be a will and a force. Why? To make the consciousness effective. Without force and will, consciousness is ineffective. So you need will and force to make consciousness effective. So, because somebody may have the full consciousness of what has to be sensed. Suppose I have the full consciousness to things to be sensed, things to be done. I have the full consciousness. What has to go and what has to come in its place. But I am helpless to make the sense. Why? Because I lack will. I do not have will and force. Then my consciousness will be ineffective. Though I have the right consciousness, what is to be sensed, what what is to go, what has to go, and what has to come in its place. I have the full consciousness of all these things, but I am helpless. But I am helpless to make this change. Why? Why? Because because I lack will power and I lack force. I lack will or I lack power. I lack force or I lack power. Or on the other hand, another may have the will force. Another may have the will force. But for want of a right awareness, that is to say consciousness, right consciousness, may be unable to apply it. So both are required, will and force, and may be unable to apply it in the right way at the right place. You have the full consciousness, right consciousness. You have the full awareness, but you lack will and you lack force. Then your consciousness is ineffective. So the advantage of being, and therefore, what is stressed here, the advantage of being in the psychic consciousness is that psychic consciousness means in your inmost consciousness. For the time being, you just understand the word psychic as inner, as being inner only, because we shall be taking up this word in a great detail, psychic being. When we shall be taking up psychic being, this thing will be taken up in a great detail. But for now, psychic consciousness you understand as your inmost, inner or inmost consciousness. So there is an advantage. There is an advantage of being in the inmost consciousness rather than in the external consciousness, in the surface consciousness. You may live in external consciousness, you may live in ordinary consciousness, but there is an advantage. But there is an advantage of being in the psychic consciousness, in the inner consciousness. Why? Because you have the right awareness then. Then you have the right awareness and its will. The will of psychic consciousness is in harmony with the mother's will. Mother's, for now, you can understand as the force of the creatrix, supreme creatrix, Jagat Janani, Mahaprakriti, the executing force. For now, you can understand as mother's will, that is to say, the force of the executing will, executing nature, executing will, or the creatrix, force of the creatrix of this universe. Creatrix of the universe. And then you can call in the mother's force to make the sense. Is it not possible to sense while being in the ordinary consciousness? That is to be understood. Why it is said that there is an advantage of being in the psychic consciousness? The advantage is the will, then its will, then its consciousness, then its awareness is the right awareness, and its will being in harmony with the mother's will. Mother's will means the will of the supreme creatrix, the will of the supreme executing force. Then why you don't have that advantage while advantage while you live in ordinary consciousness? Because those who live in mind and the vital means pran, mind means mon, they are our external being. Our mind, our sharir, mon, pran, these three are our external being, not inner being. They are not our inner being. Mind is not inner being. From spiritual point of view, from psychological point of view, mind, body, and sharir, sharir, mon, pran, ami je kaun sharir, mon, pran, these three are external part, our external part. Vital means pran, mind means mon. So those who live in the mind and in the vital, are not so well able to do this. Why? Because they are obliged to use mostly their personal effort. When you live in your ordinary consciousness, you have only your personal effort. You are not supported by mother's will. You are not supported by the force of the psychic being, power of the psychic being. You are alone then. You are left to it alone. So they are obliged to use mostly their personal effort. When you live in your ordinary consciousness and do work, you are to put only your personal effort. And as the awareness and will and force of the mind and vital are divided and imperfect, as I have already explained, that you need right awareness as well as you need force and will. But also they have to be in harmony. Your awareness, will, and force. There must be harmony amongst your awareness, amongst your will, and amongst your force. So there must be harmony among awareness, will, and force. But when you live in the mental consciousness, or when you live in mind or vital, then you are obliged to use mostly their personal effort. Because why? This awareness and will are not in harmony. Awareness and will are divided. Force and will is divided. Force and awareness is divided. And also they are imperfect. They are not perfect as well. Our mind is not perfect. Our mental consciousness is not a perfect consciousness. Jodi perfect holheten jagotot iman samasya srishti noholheten. Amar jodi pranik chetona jodi shuddha chetona holheten, tenhole jagotot iman hahakar noholiheten. Aru ami jetia mental disturbance, amar jetu psychological health hobo lage, we have to overcome psychological disturbance. Mostly our psychological disturbance or source is this great vital, this prana. Prana, this external prana is almost imperfect. Almost imperfect. There is nothing perfection, almost. So the work done is also imperfect and not definitive. So when you live in your mind and in vital, the first point to be noted, then you are to use mostly your own power, own effort. You are not being supported by the harmony of awareness and will of psychic being. But when you live in psychic consciousness, then there is harmony between your awareness and will and force. But when you live in your mental consciousness, then you are to put your personal effort, and also will, force, and awareness all are divided and all are imperfect. So your work done will be ineffective and work done will not be definitive. So awareness, will, force are always one movement and automatically effective in where it is they are automatically effective in a higher consciousness, even better than psychic consciousness. But we need not to explain that consciousness. Simply, it is sufficient for us to know that in the higher consciousness, according to Maharishi, it is called supramental consciousness. It is above our mind. We shall be taking up, but we shall be taking up to our mind. That is, above mind there is higher mind. Above higher mind there is illumined mind. Above illumined mind there is intuitive mind, and above intuitive mind there is over mind. And above over mind there is supramental consciousness. And what happens in supramental consciousness? if you can ascend to that level of consciousness, then your awareness, that is to say your consciousness, your will and force, are always one movement. They are not divided at all. But in our ordinary consciousness, my will is different, my awareness is different, force I am putting is also different. They are not in harmony. At least if we could live in psychic consciousness, there will be at least harmony between will and awareness. So this is the first thing. But before I go to the next portion of today's discussion, let us understand what is called power, what is called force, and what is called strength, and what is called energy. Are they same things, or there are differences between them? There are four words, almost sound similar words: power, force, strength, and energy. You'll be amazed. The Maharishi has how beautifully distinguished. First, let us define power. First, let us define the word power. What is power? What is power? So power means strength and force. First, he says power means strength and force. That is to say, Shakti. It is the Indian equivalent word, Shakti. Power means strength and force, which enables one to face all that can happen and to stand and overcome. So power enables us to stand and overcome, and also carry out what the divine will proposes. But let us not now take up divine, because modern mind has already exiled two things from their practical motive power. Maharishi has said these things in his essays on the Gita. So modern mind has already exiled. Modern mind does not like the role of divine and role of spirituality in their life. Modern minds do not want. And that is why Maharishi says modern mind has exiled from their practical motive power two important things. What are those two important things? One, he says, the God or the eternal, number one. And number two, spirituality and the God state. But according to Maharishi, these two are the master conceptions of the Gita. If you don't have, or if you do not consider these two things while you study Gita, then there is no profit in studying Gita. Because these two are the master conception of the Gita. God or the eternal on one hand, and on the other, spirituality or the God state. So power, not only, it is not to be understood only in ordinary sense. Power also enables us to carry out what the divine will proposes. You may accept it or you may not accept it. I am not going to impose on you. But power means two things. So power means strength and force, that is to say Shakti, which enables one to face all that can happen, and to stand and overcome. This is the first sense. It is ordinary sense. And power also means, what it means? Power enables us to carry out what the divine will proposes. So it can include many things: power over man, power over events, power over circumstances, power over means, etc. So power has a very wide sense. The word power has a wide sense. So it enables us to carry out what the divine will proposes, as well as it enables us to face all that can happen, and to stand and overcome. So that Shakti is called power in English, power. But then, is power and force similar? Are power and force similar, or are power and energy similar, or strength and power similar? And Maharishi gives a beautiful distinction between these four words. All have their own specific meaning. These four words have their own specific meaning, individual to that word only. So Maharishi says power is the essence of Shakti, of force. The force is the essential Shakti, or he says force is the essential Shakti. The word force, force is the essential Shakti. He has used the word essential Shakti. Force is the essential Shakti. Then what is energy? Maharishi says energy is the working drive of the force. Working drive. অর্থাৎ ক'ব পাৰি প্ৰণোদনা, একদম প্ৰণোদিত কৰা শক্তি, যিটো শক্তিটোকো প্ৰণোদিত কৰিব লাগিব, নহ'লে force will remain inactive. So energy is needed. And what is energy? Energy is working drive of the force, or you may call it active dynamism. Active dynamism. So force is the essential Shakti. And what is energy? Energy is the working drive of the force. Working drive of the force, energy. Or you may call it the active dynamism. Energy is the active dynamism. And then what is power? What does the word power mean? The power is the capacity. Power is the capacity born of the force. So power is the capacity. Power is the capacity. And then what is strength? Maharishi says, strength is energy consolidated. So consolidated energy is called strength. When energy is consolidated and stored in the adhara. Adhara means we are. Adhara means vessel, patra, adhara. So human body or human being is an adhara. Adhar. Adhar is the Indian word, the vessel. So there are four specific meaning. Force is the essential Shakti. Energy is the active dynamism or working drive of the force. Working drive of the force, energy, or the active dynamism. And power is the capacity. Power is the capacity born of the forces. Power is the capacity. And what is strength? Strength is energy consolidated and stored in the adhara. When energy is consolidated, or when the active dynamism is consolidated and stored in the adhara, then it is called strength. So all have their own meanings, own meaning. So power is capacity, energy is working drive of the force, power is capacity born of the force, energy is either active dynamism or working drive of the force. Force is the essential Shakti, and strength is the energy consolidated and stored in the adhara. Stored in the adhara. And then Maharishi says, energy in each atom of the being. In each atom of the being, there is an energy, a Shakti. But in practice, these four words are often used interchangeably, although they have their own specific meanings. So in each atom of the being, there is an energy, a Shakti. just as there is in every material atom a great material energy. যেনেকে মেটাৰৰ মাজত এটা গ্ৰেট মেটেৰিয়েল এনাৰ্জি আছে, আমি এটম বমৰ কথা জানো, গ্ৰেট মেটেৰিয়েল এনাৰ্জি আছে, তেনেকে কৈছে ইন ইটছ এটম অফ দি বিইং, আমাৰ সত্তাৰ মাজতো কৈছে এটম অফ দি বিইং দেয়াৰ ইজ এন এনাৰ্জি, আমাৰ ভিতৰতো এনাৰ্জি আছে। When you see like that, আপুনি যদি সেই ধৰণে যদি আমি দৃষ্টিপাত কৰিব পাৰো, when you see like that, you become aware of these energies. If you do not see like that, you will not see the energy. And these energies are, according to Maharishi, neither good or bad. Energy in you, energy that is in atom in you, neither good or bad. It depends on how they are used or how they act. So it depends on how you use or how they act. Energy, in itself, energy is itself neither good nor bad. So now the third thing to be discussed. So we have discussed what is consciousness, and in consciousness two things are essential. One is awareness, other one is the will or force. Because without will, consciousness is ineffective. And without consciousness, I may not be able to use my will in a right direction. So awareness and will both are required. But in ordinary consciousness, this awareness and will are divided and imperfect. And that is why work done is imperfect and not definitive. So what is advised then? If possible, we are to live in the psychic consciousness. And in the highest consciousness, that is to say, it is called supramental consciousness. In supramental consciousness, what happens? Awareness, will, force are always one movement. They don't have any disunity between them. There is total harmony between will, force, and awareness. Many problem happens because of disharmony between our will and awareness, will and consciousness. But in supramental consciousness, or in the psychic consciousness, or in higher consciousness, higher than mind at least, you will find some degree of harmony between your will and awareness and force. But in ordinary consciousness, it is almost divided and almost imperfect. So now, let us take up another thing. So we have two words. One is energy and one is consciousness. And it is said that consciousness is a creative and dynamic energy. Consciousness is not only awareness, not only power of awareness. Consciousness is also a dynamic and creative energy. Or we may say that consciousness has a creative as well as dynamic energy. Then, are consciousness and energy similar thing? Same thing? That is to be understood. But it is said that consciousness is a dynamic and creative energy. It has already been said. Or you may say it, consciousness has dynamic or creative energy. And consciousness is also power of awareness. Now the question is whether energy and consciousness, same thing. Then Maharishi explains that if consciousness and energy are the same thing, there would be no use in having two different words for them. As there are two words, they cannot be entirely two things, same thing, because there would be no use in having two different words then. And how he makes us understand that in that case, instead of saying I am conscious of my defects, suppose there is a statement, I am conscious of my defects. It is a valid statement. I am conscious of my defects. One can say. Can we say I am energetic of my defects? We cannot. Then it will have no sense that I am energetic of my defects. So consciousness and energy are not same things. Though consciousness is also a dynamic energy and creative energy, or consciousness has dynamic or creative energy, yet consciousness, energy are not the same thing. Because one can say, I am conscious of my defect. But one cannot say like this, I am energetic of my defects. And another example now, Maharishi gives, said that if a man is running fast, you can say of him like this, he is running with great energy. He is running with great energy. We may call it, we may say like this, he is running with great energy. Do you think it would mean the same if you said he is running with great consciousness? It cannot be. So consciousness and energy cannot be same thing, though consciousness has creative and dynamic energy, but they cannot be same thing, because we cannot say like this, that he is running with great consciousness. And it also makes us understand the essential difference between consciousness and the word energy, that I am conscious of my defects. It is only awareness. Awareness. I am conscious of my defects. But he is running with great energy. So he is running with great energy means it is the active dynamism. It is the working drive of the force, energy. So they are not same thing, because we cannot say that I am running with great consciousness. I will say I am conscious of my own defects. It is just awareness. And then consciousness is that which is aware of things. Consciousness is aware of things. Energy is a force put in action. Energy is a force put in action which does things. So energy and consciousness are not the same thing. Though consciousness is also a dynamic, it is said that consciousness is also a dynamic and creative energy. Yet, they are not the same thing. So consciousness may have energy. It is admitted, consciousness may have energy. Not only may have, consciousness has energy. And keep it in or put it out. Consciousness can put energy out or can keep it within itself. But that does not mean that it is only another word for energy. So consciousness is not the another word for energy. They are not the same thing. And that it has to go out when the energy goes out, and that it cannot stand back and observe the energy in action, because consciousness can observe the energy in action. Energy can go out from my being. Still, I do possess consciousness. So consciousness and energy are not the same thing. You have plenty of inertia in you. Suppose now, another example. You have plenty of inertia in you. Plenty of inertia in you. But that does not mean that you and inertia are the same thing. You and inertia are the same thing. And when inertia rises and swamps you. Swamps means যেতিয়া বুড়াই পেলাই একেবাৰে 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 অভাৰৱেলম কৰি পেলাই, যেতিয়া এনাৰ্জিয়ে যেতিয়া একেবাৰে অভিভূত কৰি পেলাই, কৈছে swamp মানে হলেন যিটো আমি কওঁ swamp মানে overwhelm or flood with water. Swamp, SWAMPS, swamps. So, and when inertia rises, যেতিয়া একেবাৰে তামসিকতা বৃদ্ধি পায়, যেতিয়া when inertia rises and swamps you, it is you who rise and swamp yourself. আমি তো তেনেকে নকওঁ. So, but that does not mean that you and inertia are same, and when inertia rises and swamps you, it is you who rise and swamp yourself, because both are a different thing. You and inertia both are different things. So consciousness may have energy, or consciousness is a dynamic or creative energy too, but still consciousness is not the another word for energy. Not the another word for energy. So this is the third thing we have discussed today. First, we have discussed the difference definition of consciousness once again. We took up the definition, or what is consciousness, we took up once again. It is awareness, it is power of awareness, it has creative and dynamic energy, it is creative and dynamic energy. Then we took up that consciousness and force or energy, that consciousness is made up of two elements. Made up of two elements. One is awareness, and the other one is power or energy or force. So consciousness is made up of two things, we have understood. And because without will, my consciousness will be ineffective. And without consciousness, I will be unable to apply my will. I will be unable to apply my will. And without will, my consciousness will be ineffective. So will, consciousness, and force, all are required. And then we took up that the advantage of being in the psychic consciousness. Why? When you are living in psychic consciousness, then your awareness and your will are in harmony. But when you are living in external consciousness, surface consciousness, that is to say, when you live in your mind and vital, that is to say, prana, then there is no advantage on your part. You are obliged to use only your own personal effort, and that too imperfect and divided. Why imperfect and divided? Because your will, because in external consciousness, our consciousness and will and force are not in harmony. Not in harmony. And that is why work done is imperfect and not definitive. Then we did discuss what are the specific meanings of four words: power, force, energy, and strength. Strength is the energy. Strength is the energy consolidated and stored. Power is the capacity born of the force. And what is force? Force is the essential Shakti. And what is energy? Energy is the working drive of the force, or the actual dynamism. So energy is the actual dynamism. And then we discussed that in each atom of the being, there is an energy, a Shakti. Like what? Just as there is in every material atom a great material energy. We know there is a great material energy in atom. In every material atom, there is a great material energy. So the atom in you also not devoid of energy. It has also its own energy, that is to say, Shakti. So then we took up that there are two words, though consciousness may have energy, creative energy, consciousness has creative energy, and consciousness has dynamic energy, or on the other hand, it is also said that consciousness is a dynamic and creative energy. Still, energy and consciousness are not the same thing. Consciousness is not just the another word for energy, and why we have understood from 2-3 specific examples. So now let us take up this trace of consciousness. Why our consciousness happens? Consciousness varies from person to person, individual to individual. Why? Why, if the consciousness is a reality inherent in the existence, if consciousness is the fundamental thing in the existence, then your consciousness and my consciousness should have been same thing, same degree of awareness. Your awareness and my awareness should have same degree of awareness. It should be identical. If consciousness is a reality inherent in the existence, if if the consciousness is the original substance, because it all depends. Why? It varies from individual to individual, because it all depends upon where the consciousness places itself and centralizes itself. If I am centralizing my consciousness in the external consciousness, and you are centralizing your consciousness in the psychic being, so it is bound to be different. It is bound to be different. So it all depends upon where the consciousness places itself and centralizes itself. What kendribhuto kore? Your awareness, আপোনাৰ যিটো সচেতনতা, আমাৰ যিটো কনসিয়াসনেস চেতনাই নিজকে কোট কেন্দ্ৰীভূত কৰে। প্ৰাণত কেন্দ্ৰীভূত কৰিব, নে শৰীৰত কেন্দ্ৰীভূত কৰিব, নে মনত কেন্দ্ৰীভূত কৰিব, নে হৃদয়ত কেন্দ্ৰীভূত কৰিব, নে অন্তৰাত্মাত কেন্দ্ৰীভূত কৰিব। সেইভাবে প্ৰত্যেক মানুহেই বেলেগ বেলেগ মানুহ। আমি যিমানেই ডেমক্ৰেসিত নকওঁ কিয়, all individual are একে কথা, সব মানুহ একে। In reality, it is not the case, because your consciousness is not similar to that of mine. We all, আমাৰ প্ৰত্যেকৰে চেতনা বেলেগ বেলেগ, আমাৰ প্ৰত্যেকৰে প্ৰকৃতি বেলেগ, মন বেলেগ, সকলো বেলেগ বেলেগ। It all depends upon where the consciousness places itself and centralizes itself. If the consciousness places and associates itself within the ego, you are identified with the ego. What is ego? Though it will be taken up in a great detail, the word ego, psychic being. But for now, ego is a separative consciousness. Ego means I am separated from this world. And when you will annihilate your ego consciousness, what you will find, but how? Through the discipline of yogic consciousness. Then you will find, no, the whole consciousness of the world is united. Then you will be able to see your own soul in me and your soul in me. My soul in you, your soul in me. When ego is annihilated, then I will see my own soul in you. My own soul in you and your soul in me. But now it is not the case, because we are divided. This dividing consciousness is called ego consciousness. And what is its outcome? Narrowness is the outcome. Imprisonment in the And according to Indian psychology, culprit of our all unhappiness, there is only one culprit of all happiness, all unhappiness. How? It will be discussed. According to Indian spirituality, Indian psychology, ego is the sole culprit. And source is our imperfect vital, prana. Imperfect, ahuddha pran, and ego is the culprit. Ego means your narrowness is the culprit. So if you can annihilate your ego, then you will be united with the Supreme Consciousness. Then you will have only bliss and bliss and bliss and bliss. It is said, I am not experiencing. It is said. So if the consciousness places or associates itself within the ego, you are identified with the ego. This is my house, this is my car, this is my degree, this is my life, this is my country. This I will prevail. I will dictate you. This I consciousness will dictate you. And it is called this separative consciousness is the ego consciousness. আর ভারতবর্ষ এই তিনটা শব্দ ইগো সকলো সমস্যাৰ মূলত ইগো বুলি কৈছে whether it is relationship crisis whether it is in group dynamics in everything ego is the only culprit. So you are identified with the ego. If in the mind, if consciousness places itself in the mind, then it is identified with the mind and its activities and so on. So it is bound to be different. Though consciousness is same thing. Consciousness is the reality inherent in the existence. You are placing your consciousness in mind. I am placing my consciousness in vital. So my consciousness is associated with my prana. And what is prana? I have already discussed to an extent. And it will be again discussed. So it is identified with the mind and its activities and so on. If the consciousness puts its stress outside, it is said to live in the external being. And what is consciousness? Just the awareness. If your awareness is tagged with external being, then it means you are living in external consciousness. And it is said to live in the external being, not in internal being, inner being, and becomes oblivious of its inner mind, inner vital, and inmost psychic. So now, for the first time, you have come across three words: inner vital, inner mind, and you will find another word somewhere, inner physical. So it will be discussed. So when I shall be taking up psychological parts of our being, you have mind as well as you have an inner mind. You are also having an inmost mind. You are having a gross physical body. You are also having a subtle body. You are having a vital as well as inner vital and inmost vital. So, and now you are not aware of your inner vital, inner mind, psychic being. Why? Because we are living in our external being. And what is the outcome? We become oblivious of our inner mind, inner vital, and inmost psychic. We are oblivious of our inner beings, inner mind, inner vital. And if it goes inside, and if you can go inside, puts its centralizing stress there, if you can put the centralizing stress of your consciousness there, then the consciousness knows itself as the inner being, or still deeper as the psychic being. Psychic being means antaratma. These things will be taken up. But how? The answer is only one. In India, this is through the discipline of yoga. That is why yoga is called practical psychology. Yoga is not therapeutic science. Yoga is not a discipline to keep our health. Though Pusaistha aru Sigitsa rog dutai niramoy yogar dara hoy. When yoga is used as an instrument for therapeutic purpose, therapeutic instrument, then it is not called yoga. Then it is called Veda. So India's therapeutic science is not yoga. India's therapeutic science is Ayurveda. When you are using asana, pranayama, all the techniques of yoga, then it is called therapeutic science. And if these are used only for physical exercise, then they are nothing but gymnasiums. Physical exercise only. So yoga is practical psychology. The whole meaning of the yoga or whole purpose of the yoga is the change of your consciousness. Change of your consciousness. We shall be taking up in due course. So then it knows itself as the inner being, or still deeper as the psychic being. If it ascends out of the body to the planes above, so it is what happens when you go inside. But what happens when you ascend out of the body to the planes above? Then what happens? Where self is necessarily conscious of its wideness and freedom, and it knows itself as the self, Atma boli titiya jane. When you will be ascending out of the body to the planes above, where self is necessarily conscious of its wideness and freedom, then it knows itself as the self, not as the mind, not as life, or not as body. This is the outcome. If you go inside, you will be realizing yourself as the psychic being. If you ascend out of the body to the planes above, then you will be realizing yourself as the self. So so it is called Jivatma, it is called Antaratma. These things will be taken up. And it is this trace of consciousness that makes all the difference. And that is why we are all different individuals. Jodi amar hokolore awareness to cetona to eke holeten, then ami similar holuheten. It amar hokolore cetona bhin bhin. আমি মনোময় চেতনাৰ দ্বাৰা পৰিচালিত হৈছো, কিছুমান প্ৰাণিক চেতনাৰ দ্বাৰা, কিছুমান শাৰীৰিক চেতনাৰ দ্বাৰা, কিছুমান অন্তৰাত্মাৰ চেতনাৰ দ্বাৰা, কিছুমান হৃদয়ৰ চেতনাৰ দ্বাৰা। কিন্তু আমি সকলোকে একেলগে ক্লাব কৰি কওঁ মোৰ চেতনা মানে মোৰ মেন্টাল কনসিয়াসনেস। আমি কান প্ৰাণ শব্দটো কৈ থাকো, কিন্তু প্ৰাণৰ অস্তিত্বটো বা প্ৰাণৰ আমি তাৰ উৎসটো নাজানো। আৰু প্ৰাণিক চেতনাত থাকাৰ অৰ্থ কি, মেন্টাল চেতনাৰ মাজত থাকাৰ অৰ্থ কি, সেইবোৰ আমি যেতিয়া মন, যদিও মই ইতিমধ্যে প্ৰাণৰ কিছু পৰিমাণে মই প্ৰাণ বোলা বস্তুটোৰ মই স্বৰূপ ব্যাখ্যা কৰিছো, কিন্তু আৰু আমি ব্যাখ্যা কৰিম হোৱাট ইজ প্ৰাণ। কাৰণ আমাৰ এই যে মেন্টাল ডিস্টারবেন্স, আমি সাইকোলজিক্যাল হেলথলৈ গৈ আছো, কাৰণ আমাৰ মেন্টাল ডিস্টারবেন্সৰ সোর্স, কাৰণ কিছুমান মেন্টাল ডিস্টারবেন্স আছে, কিছুমান ফিজিক্যাল ডিস্টারবেন্স আছে, কিছুমান ভাইটাল ডিস্টারবেন্স আছে। গতিকে আমি প্ৰাণ মানে কি, মন মানে কি, শৰীৰ মানে কি, শৰীৰৰ পৰা কোনবোৰ আমাৰ অশান্তি আহে, মনৰ পৰা কোনবোৰ আহে, প্ৰাণৰ পৰা কোনবোৰ আহে, আৰু কেনেকে ইগোটো এনিহিলেট, এটলিষ্ট ইগো এনিহিলেশনৰ অৰ্থ আমি এইদৰে ভাবিব নালাগে যে টোটাল এনিহিলেশন। the expanse of consciousness, আমি আমাৰ চেতনাটোক যিমান সম্প্ৰসাৰিত কৰিব পাৰিম সিমানে আমি সুখানুভূতিৰ দিশে সুখ, যদিও তাৰো মাজত চাৰিটা কথা আছে, তৃপ্তি আছে, সন্তুষ্টি আছে, সুখ আছে, স্ফূৰ্তি আছে, আনন্দ আছে. There are 5 words: pleasure, satisfaction, happiness, joy and bliss. যেনেকে মই কলো power, energy, strength, force, চাৰিটাৰ মাজত there are minute differences. ঠিক এই ধৰণে what is pleasure? Pleasure is not equivalent to bliss. Pleasure is not equivalent to joy. Pleasure is not equivalent to happiness. Pleasure is related to physical, almost. Satisfaction is related to vital. Happiness is related to heart. Though heart is also called higher vital, still happiness is related to heart. Joy is related to mind, and bliss is related to soul. So it is this trace of consciousness that makes all the difference. That is why one has to concentrate the consciousness in heart or mind. It is advised. Whether you will agree it or whether you will follow it or not, I am not going to impose on you. So that is why one has to concentrate, because this is a letter written to disciple by a guru. So Aurobindo was writing, these are letters written to his disciples. So he can advise his own disciple, but I can advise to you. So jitu amar গীতাত কৈছে একেবাৰে, গীতাই যিটো আমাক আধ্যাত্মিক স্বাধীনতা দিছে 18 নম্বৰ অধ্যায়ৰ 63 নম্বৰ শ্লোকত, 7 শ্লোক অৰ্জুনক আগত ব্যক্ত কৰাৰ পিছতো অৰ্জুনক কৈছে, বোপাই তুমি এতিয়া কি কৰিবা? যে যথেষ্ট তথা কৰো, তোমাৰ যি ইচ্ছা তাকে কৰা, তোমাৰ বিবেচনা তুমি কৰি তুমি যিটো উচিত বুলি ভাবা তাকে কৰিবা। গীতাই সেই ধৰণৰ আধ্যাত্মিক স্বাধীনতা দিছে। গতিকে মই ইয়াত জাস্ট I am mentioning, I am not imposing. So that is why one has to concentrate the consciousness in heart or mind at least, in order to go in or go above. If you want to go above, if you want to go inside, so try to concentrate your consciousness either in the heart is better, or in the mind, but don't concentrate on your prana and physical. So it is the disposition of the consciousness, disposition মানে মেজাজ প্ৰৱণতা, disposition of the consciousness that determines everything. That determines everything. Makes one predominantly mental, vital, physical, or psychic. Whether you are a mental man, whether you are a physical man, or whether you are a vital man, or whether you are a psychic man, who determines? The disposition of the consciousness. That determins everything. So bound or free, whether you are a free man or you are a bound man, who will be determining? The trace of your consciousness, the disposition of your consciousness. Whether you are separate in the purusha or involved in the prakriti, that is a different thing. That is these things, if it comes in our way, we shall be taking up. But for now, I think this will be sufficient, that the disposition of consciousness makes one predominantly either mental, vital, physical, or psychic. So tomorrow I shall be taking up another thing. মই ভাবো যে আৰু 2-3টা সেশনৰ পিছত আমি কনসিয়াসনেস আমি সমাপ্ত কৰিব পাৰিম। তাৰ পিছত আমি পাৰ্টস অফ বিইং, আমাৰ পাৰ্টস অফ বিইং লৈ আমি যাম। আমাৰ যিটো অলমোস্ট মই এই কনসিয়াসনেস আলোচনা কৰাৰ হৈতে আপোনালোকক মই যিটো তাৰ ফাউণ্ডেশ্যন, তাৰ যিটো পটভূমি বেকগ্ৰাউণ্ড তৈয়াৰ কৰিব লাগে, আমাৰ পাৰ্টস অফ সাইকোলজিক্যাল বিইং, আমাৰ মানে পাৰ্টস, আমাৰ সাইকোলজিক্যাল পাৰ্টস, এই বিষয়ে মই এটা প্ৰয়াস কৰিছো। যিসকলে ৰেগুলাৰলি নিয়মীয়াভাৱে শুনি আছে, এতিয়া আমি যেতিয়া আৰু 2-3টা সেশনৰ পিছত আমি আৰু কনসিয়াসনেসৰ মই আৰু 2-3টা মান সেশনৰ ভিতৰতে আমি শেষ কৰিব পাৰিম কনসিয়াসনেস। So with this, let me allow to conclude here for today. If you want to interact, we can interact for a few minutes. Thank you and namaskar to all. আৰু কাৰো একো নাই নেকি? Dr. Jyoti Das, so you can conclude.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So we have come to the conclusion of this 25th session of our 100 lecture series. And I think Sir has raised some thought-provoking thoughts. And while our esteemed Sir was talking about different levels of consciousness and reaching there, somewhere I was also reminded of this particular statement made by Albert Einstein as to how no problem can ever be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. So while Sir was trying to talk about how we should try to reach the higher plane by the kind of consciousness relating it with heart and mind, so maybe yeah, we can actually use this kind of wonderful so it's wonderful how Sir has been actually deliberating on these lectures with reference to, of course,
Sri Aurobindo.
Aurobindo's thoughts. Yes, so it's really wonderful. So I, Dr. Jyoti Das, Department of Sociology, Cotton University, on behalf of Capacity Building Center, extend my heartfelt thanks to our respected resource person, Shri Diganta Biswa Sarma sir, for completing this wonderful session today, 25th session being completed. We look forward definitely to the next session tomorrow. I also would like to thank all the esteemed participants for joining us today and for continuing in this wonderful journey. I also thank Middle Hajarika, our main person in our technical support, who has made this online platform possible for us. So I thank all of you. And yes, on this note, we end today's session here. Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you and namaskar to all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you and namaskar.
Thank you.
Thank you.